RBI Governor highlights inflation trends, projects 4.5% CPI. GDP growth revised to 7.2% for financial year 2024-25, says RBI Governor. Food inflation persists despite overall CPI decline, says RBI Governor. RBI projects balance risk for GDP and inflation in 2024-25. Reserve Bank of India Governor Shaktikanta Das addressed the current inflationary trends and the economic outlook during a recent press conference. Highlighting both the challenges and positive developments, he provided a detailed analysis of the Consumer Price Index and projected GDP growth for the financial year 2024-25. Governor Das noted that CPI headline inflation declined in March and April. However, persistent food inflation pressures offset gains from disinflation in core sectors and deflation in fuel groups. Despite some moderation, inflation in pulses and vegetables remained in double digits. Vegetable prices saw a summer uptick following a shallow winter season correction, while the deflationary trend in fuel was largely due to LPG price cuts in early March. Coal inflation continued to soften for the 11th consecutive month since June 2023.
I would now like to focus on inflation. CPI headline inflation softened further during the months of March and April, though persisting food inflation pressures offset the gains of disinflation in core and deflation in fuel groups. Despite some moderation, pulses and vegetables inflation remained firmly in double digits. Vegetable prices are experiencing a summer uptick following a shallow winter season correction. The deflationary trend in fuel was driven primarily by the LPG price cuts in early March. Core inflation softened for the 11th consecutive month since June 2023. Prices of industrial metals have registered double-digit growth in the current calendar year so far. These trends, if sustained, could accentuate the recent uptick in input cost conditions for farms. On the other hand, the forecast of above normal monsoon bodes well for the Kharif season. Wheat procurement has surpassed last year's level. In fact, the buffer stocks of wheat and rice are well above the norms. These developments could bring respite to food inflation pressures, particularly in cereals and pulses. The outlook on crude oil prices.
The outlook for crude oil prices remains uncertain due to geopolitical tensions. Assuming a normal monsoon, CPI inflation for 2024-25 is projected at 4.5%, with quarterly estimates at 4.9% for Q1, 3.8% for Q2, 4.6% for Q3, and 4.5% for Q4. Risks are considered to be evenly balanced.
Outlook on crude oil prices remains uncertain due to geopolitical tensions. Assuming a normal monsoon, CPI inflation for 2024-25 is projected at 4.5%, with Q1 at 4.9%, Q2 at 3.8%, Q3 at 4.6%, and Q4 at 4.5%. The risks are evenly balanced. So thus, as you can see, the GDP growth projection, we have increased it from 7%, which we gave out in the last MPC meeting. We have increased it to 7.2%. And the inflation projection, the average for the year, we have retained it at 4% as 4.5%, as it was in the last MPC meeting. And I have explained there are good reasons why we have increased the GDP forecast, the GDP projection for the current year.
The GDP growth projection for the current year has been increased from 7% to 7.2%. Governor Das explained that there are strong reasons for this upward revision, The real GDP growth for the financial year 2024-25 is projected at 7.2%, with quarterly growth rates of 7.3% for Q1, 7.2% for Q2, 7.3% for Q3, and 7.2% for Q4. The risks to these projections are also seen as evenly balanced.
Into consideration, real GDP growth for the current financial year 2024-25 is projected at 7.2%. Let me repeat, the GDP growth that we are now projecting for the current financial year 2024-25 is 7.2%, with Q1 at 7.3%, Q2 at 7.2%, Q3 at 7.3%, and Q4 at 7.2%. The risks are evenly balanced.
Governor Das's comprehensive overview reflects the RBI's cautious optimism amid a complex economic landscape, balancing inflationary pressures with positive growth indicators. The central bank's projections underscore its commitment to maintaining economic stability while navigating the challenges posed by both domestic and global factors. News Desk reports such the reality.